Okay, hello everyone. My name is Bartek and I'm a third year student here in Politechnika Wrocławska. I'm studying mechanical engineering and today the topic of my presentation is engineering in sports and medicine. I'm almost 100% sure that if you're trying to imagine a mechanical engineer, you see in your mind a guy trying to draw some technical drawings, thinking about a new model of Audi or Mercedes, or in general trying to improve some machines. And of course it is all true, but today I'm gonna show you that mechanical engineering has many other applications. So my biggest passion is applying new technologies in sports and medicine. There are plenty of ways to do that. For example, we can create some artificial limbs to help disabled people. We can apply some biomechanics rule in sports, or even we can do some hard science, like for example genetic engineering. And these are of course only some examples, and I'm going to go back to that later and explain it a little bit deeper. So at the beginning, let's start to understand what are biomechanics. So biomechanics is a science when we trying to applicate physics rules, especially mechanics, into sports. On the slide you can see an athlete riding on a horse, and we can see that the joints of this horse are replaced by black dots. And at the picture of the right side of this slide, we can see that these joints are connected by simple beams, which are the symbols of limbs of this horse. And in biomechanics, we are trying to, when we know the length of these limbs, when we know applied forces, and then we calculate the most optimal angles between the limbs of the athlete, for example. So you can imagine, for example, when we have Olympic weightlifter and he's carrying a bar with heavy weights over his head. So we know the length of the limbs of this Olympic weightlifter. We know applied force, which is the weight over his head, and then we can calculate the most accurate angles to help this weightlifter to survive this wave. So this is how biomechanics work. Of course, we use biomechanics to help people not to get injured, but let's try to find out why do we get injured. So the biggest problem is that we don't know how to keep perfect posture. The most people still spend the most time of them day with poor posture. So to show you how to keep proper posture, I'll do a quick presentation. So first, let's try to keep our feet a little bit more narrow than our shoulder line, and try to do movement like this, but without taking the foot fingers outside. So just squeeze your glutes. There is very important to squeeze your glutes. Then squeeze your abdominal muscles by exhaling the breath. Now I can feel squeeze in my abs. Then the next step is to try to keep shoulders in healthy external rotation. So do this kind of movement with your hands and try to go back with the starting position, but keep your shoulders still in the healthy position. And of course, keep your chest up, head up, and look forward. And this is the healthiest position to stay. What are the other problems? The other problem is, for example, too much sitting. Sitting, of course, is not the healthiest position for our body. For example, lying on the bed is much healthier than sitting on the chair. And of course, computers and smartphones. When we watch too much TV, when we sit in front of computer too much, our head go too much forward, and there are bad a compression force on our spine. And so this is very unhealthy too. And if you like this kind of useful tips, I highly recommend to read this book. This is Becoming a Supple Leopard, written by Kelly Starrett, who is one of the best physiotherapists. He works with world's famous athletes and even with Marine Corps soldiers. Okay, biomechanics in strength sport. This is my favorite topic. Here we can see some powerlifters who have to weight with very heavy loads, so applying biomechanics in these sports is very important. And on the first two pictures we can see an athlete who is doing deadlift. In deadlift, this is exercise when our task is to carry the bar and do this kind of movement, so we have to at the end of the movement have the bar above our knees. And once again, the first athlete, Layne Norton, probably have stronger legs than his back, so he do more wide stance, and he carry the bar in the middle of his legs. And on the right picture we have Gareth Gonzalez. He's definitely have more stronger backs than his legs, so he prefer narrow stance. And in the bottom of the slide we can see an athlete who is doing a squat. And once again, if you have stronger quads, you probably will you will stand a little bit more narrow and trying to stay as much upright as possible in the full range of motion. But if you have stronger backs than your quad, maybe it is a good idea to stand a little bit more narrow and do something like good morning, to emphasize more your back rather than your quads. Okay, let's go back, let's move on to engineering in medicine. Of course, we can use engineering in physical therapy to help people after accident with their recovery process. And of course, we can create some devices to help disabled athletes to do some sports, because in my opinion they deserve to train as much as healthy people. Of course, we can use engineering in to improve vaccines or in neuroscience. This is more like chemical engineering, but I like reading about it very much too. So there are some not clear situations with vaccines. Some people think that they are unhealthy, but the recent studies show that vaccines are very helpful in the future. But of course, the main thing is to think about the best proper amount of antibodies in the vaccine. And of course, neuroscience is brand new science. There are some advanced researches, and neuroscientists are investigating such interesting things like, for example, connection between the level of chemical substances in our brain, such as, for example, dopamine, serotonin, and connection with level of these substances and some illnesses like, for example, depression or Alzheimer's. So this is very interesting too. And of course, genetic engineering. Genetic engineers, the biggest tasks of them is to, for example, try to find the drug for cancer. We still don't have 100% accurate drug for cancer, but there are some advanced researches. And to show you how cancer works, we have the cell. There are some mitochondria in the cell, and in the middle of every cell there is a DNA chain. And when in the middle of this DNA chain there are some unphysiological changes, that's how cancer creates in our body. And the brand new researches show us that 60% of reasons of cancer we can control. These are, for example, poor diet or chemicals in the air, and 40% are independent of us. They are just in our genes. So that's all I had to say. Thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them. Okay, thank you very much.